In this video, I'm going to show you how you can register production intake in ERPRev software. Navigate to the left, click on product inventory, click on product stock intake, click on register production intake. Here, this applies to people that produce what they sell and they have a standard recipe for each of the items that they produce. Okay, if you buy and sell, this is not the model for you. You're expected to use the register stock intake model instead, because this applies to people that produce what they sell. And if you use this model, the advantages of using this one is that system is going to help you calculate your unit cost price to the last kobo, and at the same time is also going to help you deduct the raw material that was used for production, and it's also going to record what was produced into the your product inventory. Okay, so the first thing, you expected to select the date the item was produced. Then you also expected to select the item that you want to produce. Here you can only select one item at a time. So I'll search for particular products. Let's say Yale bread. So here, if you notice that the cost price, unit cost price is showing NAN, that is until I input the quantity that was produced. Then system would help use the recipe that we have set and the unit cost of each of those raw materials to calculate the unit cost price for us. So I'm going to go ahead and tell the system that, okay, maybe we produce 10. So you see it has calculated the unit cost price. Then you're also expected to register your production unit as a supplier. So I'm just going to select one supplier here. There you can input your badge number here. If you don't have a badge number, you leave it blank. System is going to auto-generate a unique badge number for this badge of production. This remark field is for any remark for administrative purpose. Then the warehouse that is specified here should also be the warehouse where the raw materials are stored. And here, the items that you produce is going to be imputed into this particular warehouse as well. If this is not the warehouse, you can click here to specify the exact warehouse. Then here is where you can see the recipe that you had already created for this particular item. If you had not created the recipe, then you would be required to now start selecting each of those raw materials manually, like this. Let me click on bill of material used. You see system has loaded it for us or automatically, because the recipes or production requirement had already been created. Assuming they were not there, it means that you now have to start clicking here to register, to select each of the raw materials and enter the quantity, which might take time. Okay, so if it's also an item that uses another product, when you're producing it, then you can click here, okay, to select the product. Okay, so now I'm just going to go ahead. Since we've entered the quantity produced, we've entered the system has calculated the unit cost price for us. Now, it's also very important that if you don't want the person who is doing the production intake to see your recipe or the bill of material used, you can configure that person's account that way. Just ensure that the person doesn't have privilege to view production requirement or to register production requirements, right? But the person can register what was produced and system will do the needful. But it's also very important to note that at the point of registering all your raw materials, if you want your unit cost price to be accurate, then the raw material needs to be, all the raw materials required needs to be entered using the right unit of measurement and also the right unit prices. And at the point of registering a raw material, if I go to material inventory and I click on material, register material, let me maximize this. Ensure that after you fill the form, there's a video on how to register raw material, but just ensure that this box is checked, okay, so that at the point of doing your production intake, system would load all the raw materials required. Whether you have it or not, it will load it for you and it will help calculate the unit cost price accurately. So at this point, if I go ahead and submit, it's going to deduct all this raw material, this quantity from the raw material inventory, and at the same time is also going to add this quantity to the finished product inventory using this cost price and this selling price. All right, so I'll first start by entering a quantity that I know is too high. We don't have enough raw materials to produce. So I'll go ahead and click on submit. It will prompt me and I say okay. See here, it's telling me that the quantity, the specified raw material with ID 47, which is this big egg, does not have up to the specified quantity. So we need 200 for this batch of production, but it has only 50 units. So this transaction would not go. And if you go and look at the bill of material, you notice that it has increased. But if I come here and I change this to say 20, and I go to the bill of material, you see the quantity has reduced as well. If you used any of this raw material, the quantity higher or lower than what you have here, you are also at liberty to change it, assuming you have the privilege to view the bill of material used. But if you don't, then you will not be able to change it. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and submit. So you see, this has been submitted successfully, which means system has added 20 pieces of this particular product to the main store, then using this as a cost price. At the same time, it has deducted all those raw materials from the raw material inventory, and that can be seen in the when you go to material usage, that's where you would find the items now. All right, so let me close this. Aside this, you can still go ahead and click here to register the names of all the staff members that participated in this batch of production. So I'll just go ahead and click, which means all your staff needs to have been registered, including the production team. So I can just go ahead and just select this, select another person. Now, if I go ahead and submit, system knows that these 3 people participated in this batch of production. So that if there's any issue, you can always check to see who and who, participated in this. So let's even go and look at our product inventory. If I go to product inventory, product stock, and I view stock, and I search for that particular product, and I fetch data, it will show me that in the main store we have 520, but I can click here to see the stock card. So I get details wide. So you see, it shows me here that we did intake of 500 before now, and we did an intake of 20. That is why the total, the balance is 520. All right, so I can click here to see the details. Let me just leave this now, and at the same time go over to the raw material usage, and view raw material usage, and I select that particular product. I just go ahead, let me just fetch data. I could use the reference number to search, but let me just fetch data. So you see, it has loaded all the raw materials, this one, the quantity, like that. And if you look at it, the batch number is the same. I can click on this batch number now. Let me maximize this. So it shows me that all these raw materials, see the quantity, the unit price, the amount was used for this. For 20 of this 10 here is the product ID. This is the product name. It shows the person that registered it. It shows the date time, the timestamp of when this transaction was imputed in the software. So that's how to register production intake. This is the best option for people that produce what they sell. If you're just starting off and maybe you've produced before and you just want to bring in what you have produced, into the software, then you can use the register production intake bulk option. But that one system is not going to help you deduct the raw materials. It's also not going to help you calculate your unit cost price. You would have to go and register material usage manually, and it will work with whatever cost price that you determine or you set. All right, so it's not the ideal option. Production intake option is better than production intake bulk. In fact, for system users, for people that is in charge of production, the option of registering production intake bulk should not be enabled in their account.